It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to council this afternoon. We have all of council present with the exception of Councillor Bartley this afternoon. And our staff are with us and our guests are with us and our listening and public in person and those viewing the proceedings. So welcome all, and I will call this meeting to order. And we'll begin with a land acknowledgement. I'll turn it over to Councillor Bell.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and the treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash, unceded First Nation, and Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis people and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. And I would ask you all to join us in a moment of reflection as we consider the business before us this afternoon. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of interest on any of the agenda items this afternoon? Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. And I will be declaring an interest in item 9A, the naming of the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion, on the grounds that I am a proud Rotarian and my late husband assisted Russ and several other Rotarians in the construction of the pavilion.
Okay, thank you for that. And we'll move on to announcements. Are there any announcements around the table? Deputy Mayor, I'm going to go first.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just wanted to announce to everyone, and I know the Canada Day agenda has been circulated, but just wanted to share that the Meaford Rotary Club is assisting the MFRC this year. They have partnered to bring the pancake breakfast to the event, and it will take place at the Harbour Pavilion, and the timing is 8 to 10 a.m. and the breakfast is by donation. And the important part is that the proceeds are going to go to Ukrainian refugees. So again, this will be taking place at the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion, 8 to 10 on July 1st. Thank you.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. I expected Councillor Bartley to be here to announce about the pork chop barbecue. Well, or at least the pork chops supplied by the Balder Hall Committee. I understand there won't be a barbecue this year, but the Hall Board are selling pork chops and they're finger licking good. And you can put in orders for a box of chops. I know Councillor Bartley is taking orders. Kevin Clark, John Rankin on the Hall Board. This will take place at least to some degree this year. And another item that is quite a ways away, but certainly volunteers and participants will be welcome, and that is a return to the Fall Fair, the St. Vincent Ag Society Fall Fair. That'll be on Labor Day weekend, I believe the Friday evening and the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. I'm guessing at the dates, I think the 3rd and 4th, or Labor Day weekend anyway. So glad to see that the Fall Fair is coming back to us. Thank you.
That's great news. Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention the air show in connection with our Canada Day celebrations. 2 years ago at the last Cobble Beach Concours d'Elegance, I had the opportunity to see Mr. Price perform over Cobble Beach. This is a spectacular show that no municipality in the province, except for Toronto at the CNE, will have the opportunity to see, although I suspect he will do the same for Thornbury. But it is a super show. I do not know what time it is scheduled, and if anybody does know, I hope they will make us aware. But that is just going to be an amazing highlight of Canada Day celebrations in Meaford.
Well, that's a good segue into my announcements, Councillor Kender, because our announcements today are full of Canada Day festivities. They are all listed on our website, and they'll be at the celebrated in Annan, Bognor, and at our Meaford Harbour this year. All of the details are available on our website, including timing and the breakfast, the pancake breakfast in the morning. The event will include a land acknowledgement and flag raising ceremony. The air show, as Councillor Kentner has mentioned, and an excellent lineup of live music and activities for adults and kids, both on and off the water. I'm curious to see what's going to be on the water for over Canada Day. Of course, great food and refreshments and community connections. So the other piece that is going to be new this year is a Twinkle light boat show at dusk. No fireworks at the Meaford Harbour this year, but fireworks will be at Annan on June the 30th, as usual, and in the at the Ball Diamond in Annan, and on Bognor on July 1st as well. So it promises to be a great celebration, and hope everyone will join us there at the Harbour for Canada Day this year. It's been great to be back in person again. A reminder that our Parks and Recreation Department has excellent activities, programs and camps for the whole family, and over the summer. And again, all of the details are listed at meaford.ca/recreation. Another popular event over the summer is the Meaford Harbour 5K Run, Walk and Stroll on Saturday, July the 9th, in support of the Meaford Hospital Foundation. Again, details will be forthcoming for that as well. Patios are up and are open for the start of summer, and folks are frequenting them and looking forward to another great summer. Are there any other announcements? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I wasn't sure if you had this one on your list or not. But the Leith Summer Festival is upcoming at the historic Leith Church. The 2022 concert season is about to begin under the artistic direction of Robert Courtgard. Saturday, June 25th at 7:30 p.m. is the first concert entitled Beethoven Rebooted. The second one is Sunday, July 10th at 2:30 in the afternoon, entitled Together Again. And information could be found on the Leith Church website, and tickets can be purchased, although I'm sorry I don't have on this particular notice the cost of the tickets. But in any event, it is a great venue for a concert, and it's really quite incredible the caliber of talent that is brought into Leith Church. So I would recommend that you go and have a listen. Thank you.
And I'm going to follow up yours too, Deputy Mayor, because there's a couple of notices that of note we haven't seen before. Elvis is coming to the Annan Ballpark. I thought that was certainly worthy of note. Sunday, June the 12th, 2 to 4 p.m. Spencer Bristow is a tribute artist, and he's presenting a family-friendly event. Tickets are adults 15, children 5 to 12, $5, and advance tickets and information can be found at TrinityAnnanUnitedChurch.com. Another activity coming up is the Meaford Theatre Company presents the Ladies Foursome by Norm Foster, June the 23rd to the 25th at 7:30 p.m. at the Woodford Community Center in Woodford. Tickets are $25 and are available at the Craig Gallery and Sheerdon's, or online at eventbrite.ca.e/ the Ladies Foursome Live Theater in Grey County. My goodness, that's quite a mouthful. Anyway, check on the website and all of these details will be there. And that brings me to my last announcement. It's a personal one. It has been my honor and a privilege to serve the residents of the Municipality of Meaford on your council for the past 12 years. The last 8 as your mayor. I'm so very grateful for your support. It has been exciting, challenging, rewarding, and an honor to lead a collaborative, strong team of council and staff. The impressive list of this team's accomplishments includes restoring financial stability to address deteriorating roads and infrastructure, a focus on community health, well-being, and accessibility, opening a new school and the long-awaited new library, creating a welcoming environment that has attracted residential and economic development, and inviting more inclusive community engagement. The effort put forward to achieve this success has been truly inspiring, and I'm so proud to note we've done it together. The future for this community is certainly bright. The work ahead to strengthen an inclusive, healthy, and vibrant community is very important. So it is with mixed feelings that I announce that I will not be seeking a third term as mayor of the Municipality of Meaford. After 12 years on council, I require more time for my family responsibilities, and I want to pursue other interests. But I want to pay tribute to the professionalism and the efficient functioning of our municipality provided by all of our staff and led by CAO Rob Armstrong. They care, and it shows. I also want to extend best wishes to my colleagues on council who will continue on with this extraordinary journey to serve our community. Thank you all.
Thanks for your leadership. Well done.
Need a drink. Take a break. And that brings us on to public participation. We always encourage this part of our council meetings, welcoming the public into view what's going on with council and bringing questions to us, bringing delegations, and the first one, a presentation. We're delighted to have Deepikaa Gupta, our Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership and Newcomer Integration in Grey Bruce, to speak to us today about newcomer integration with a presentation that she's presented. Welcome to you, ladies. We're certainly delighted to have you join us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, council members. Thank you so much for your time today. We are here, Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership, Welcoming Community Grey Bruce, and YMCA of Owen Sound. We are here to show you how we are acting as a circle of support for newcomer integration. I will be representing Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership. My colleague Suneet will be representing YMCA of Owen Sound, and Colleen will be representing Welcoming Community Grey Bruce. So starting with Jblib, we receive funding from Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada, which covers the program delivery as well as 2 staff positions. Myself, Deepikaa Gupta as the coordinator, and Kee Mayip, she has joined today as Jblib Outreach Specialist. We are supported by economic development from both Grey and Bruce counties staff. From Bruce County, we have Manpreet Kaur Sangha and Pierre Valley. And from Grey County, we have Jacinda Rudolph. She has been leading and supporting the team for Jblib. And we started in 2020, I would say we are pandemic local immigration partnership. So we all across Canada, we have 80 local immigration partnerships. Few of them are municipal LIPs, few of them are community. And in Ontario, we have 36 and we are the 37th LIP. We are very new to the LIP world, how to be more welcoming and introducing the inclusive and welcoming characteristics. So what we do? Okay. Please. The next one, please. Yeah. So we, as I said, that we are funded by IRCC to enable community partnership. And We bring together community partners who are invested in integration of newcomers. In 2021, we had the settlement strategy and action plan, which was created and led us to identify these 4 pillars on which we need to work. So we are trying to build the capacity by engaging all municipalities across Grand Bruce to integrate 17 welcoming characteristics for these communities. And then we're trying to strengthen our community by educating the stakeholders and engaging the community members to host events that acknowledge the strength of diversity. We're trying to cultivate prosperity by initiating a region-wide mentorship program for newcomers by the citizens along their employment journey. We're trying to foster inclusion, and we're trying to support that by developing anti-racism and anti-discrimination strategies and its implementation, as well as recognizing the importance of celebrating ethno-cultural festivities and increasing faith-based organizations across Grey and Bruce. Next, please. So this is the composition of Grey and Bruce, our Jblib. We have a large partner council, which is right now we have 57 members in it. Like all the stakeholders are there, and this partner council is supported by Jblib staff and is responsible for achieving objectives which we have framed in our strategic plan, and which was approved by IRCC and both Grey and Bruce counties too. So the partner council meet quarterly. And we have 3 subcommittees. One is employer subcommittee, which is working toward creating more employment opportunities and navigating those for newcomers. Then we have community subcommittee, which is working toward community integration of newcomers to the area. And we have belong subcommittee to ensure that the newcomers, they feel that sense of belongingness in the community. I'll pass on to Suneet for how they are acting as direct service providers.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members, and thank you for giving us the opportunity today to speak about our services. My name is Suneet Kukreja, and I am the coordinator for the Grey Bruce Settlement and Language Services. We work in collaboration with the YMCA of Owen Sound Grey Bruce. The Grey Bruce Settlement and Language Services, again, are funded by the Immigration Ministry, that is the IRCC. We came into existence at the same time when Jblib came into existence. We are the direct service providers, I would say. The main work that we have here is to help newcomers who move to Grey and Bruce counties to integrate into our communities and make Grey and Bruce their home. So again, like I said, so settlement services, what we are IRCT funded services for newcomers planning to move to Canada and integrate into local small rural communities. Settlement services, we have the capacity to empower and strengthen the skills that most of the newcomers bring with them when they immigrate from different countries. They all might be pro in their field, or they might be experts in their skills where they worked all their life. People choose to immigrate for different reasons. It may be by choice, or it may be due to some calamities, just like the Ukrainian war or the Afghan war situation. Be it any situation, settlement services is here to help. In settlement services, we try and partner with our local community resources, and we try and provide direct support to newcomers, be in terms of employment. Next slide. So some of the supports that we provide newcomers when they immigrate here to Canada are, first of all, understanding what exactly they need. So when a newcomer comes to a new country, the main thing they need is applying for a SIN number, navigating the banking system, navigating the school system, We help them navigate all these systems, including the healthcare, something as simple as looking for an OHIP card. So these are some of the services that our workers, we have a team of around 8 settlement workers who work in different spheres. So we do have settlement workers who assist individuals with their needs like banking, SIN number, employment. We do have Swiss workers, that is the settlement worker in schools. These individuals, they go to the schools, help children navigate the local school system, help with interpretation, translation services if needed. Something as simple as a health immunization card, which is in a different language. If that needs translated, all these services are provided free of cost. We also have, because in most of the countries, English might not be the first language. So we do offer link classes. So link classes are language instructions for newcomers moving into these areas. They are offered throughout the week in the afternoons as well as the evenings. Right now, everything is online so that individuals can have access to them because of our diverse geographical location. And again, transportation is a barrier. So in order to cover that up, we have online remote classes. Our service delivery is again mobile. Our staff is not just limited in the 4 walls of our office. They are all over the place in Grey and Bruce County trying to support individuals where they are. Other than this, we also have a workplace pilot support program. Here, if there are employers who are willing to hire newcomers but are unable to do so because of a language barrier, we do have staff who will shadow them for that period of time, provide all the orientation paperwork in their own native language till they are comfortable. So actually make a whole new experience for an employer as well as an employee. So again, at the Grey Bruce Settlement and Language Services, we are the direct support that we provide to families that move to Grey and Bruce trying to make their home. Thank you.
I'm a little taller. It's very nice to be here, Mayor and Council, and we're very pleased to talk to you about these new services and supports for newcomers, and in particular for newcomers who are coming from other countries to our community. Welcoming Communities Grey Bruce is a new organization, a not-for-profit organization that's community-based. We're having our 3rd annual meeting on June 20th. So if you'd like to attend on the Zoom call, you'd be more than welcome. But we've been around actually for quite a long time. We came together as a community group in 2006 because we wanted to know how Grey Bruce could be a more attractive area for newcomers. Shrinking population and youth out-migration in Grey Bruce is a long-standing problem, and we want to know how can we bring new people to our community. So we've been working very hard as a community group and more lately incorporated to do this kind of work, research, community development, engaging the broader community in making our community welcoming. I think we need the next slide. So our mission statement is to work towards an inclusive and welcoming Grey Bruce, where differences are celebrated and no one is left behind. There have been barriers, traditional barriers that go right back to colonization towards people of color, Indigenous people, and newcomers to our area. This is not a tradition that's going to make us a welcoming community, and gratefully, things are changing very, very quickly. We live in a wonderful area, and one of the first activities we did as welcoming communities was to found the One World Festival. It happens in Owen Sound every year, and we had that on last week on Thursday, and Sunit and Deepikaa were there, and about 800 people in total, I think, were there to celebrate diversity. and to look at how we can all feel as that we belong. I'll have the next slide, please. So welcoming Communities Grey Bruce, the new nonprofit, we have 3 broad areas that we work in. We're here to offer practical support and assistance to immigrants and refugees and any newcomers who come to our area to settle successfully. And we do that at the community level. We're also here to engage the community to make our community more welcoming, to address barriers to inclusion, things like racial or cultural or institutional barriers. Sometimes there are barriers within workplaces. And we can do that by engaging the community in a spirit of belonging. And finally, collaboration. We're collaborating in particular with settlement and language services, and also with the local immigration partnership to work together so that we have some key main messages everywhere about belonging, inclusion. And we're also very happy to be working directly with municipalities. At the moment, we're working with the City of Owen Sound to help develop an equity, diversity, and inclusion policy for the city, the corporation. So, and we have a new project. We just got funded to work collaboratively with the Chamber of Commerce, directly with educating employers about how to successfully integrate newcomers at the workplace. We're just so thrilled. First of all, we were very actively working towards getting settlement services in Grey Bruce, and also a local immigration partnership, and that's been successful. And I think with these 2 new services that are doing such great work, we're going to be opening our doors to many, many newcomers who are going to love living here as much as I do. When I was a newcomer, I came over 30 years ago, and it's a wonderful area to live and work and raise a family. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
I'm the shortest. So to put our work in context and to gain a better understanding of how we 3 work together, I would like to just present a little case scenario here. Like, let's say a member of your community have joined hands and together they're saying to support Ukrainian, and they're unsure about where to start and whom to connect with. So Jblib provide indirect support. They can connect with Jblib staff, myself or Kime, to find out about the specific resources that would help them to move forward the group. For example, is there funding available? Are there any toolkits in Ukrainian languages that has already been created? Because we definitely believe in not reinventing the wheels, but utilize already existing resources which other libs are having. And then they can connect with settlement services for direct support. Let's say for like the Ukrainian families, if they need to know which school their kids will be going, how to open a bank account, if they need help with language services, and if they need to create a resume or, to get a job, because they provide employment services as well and provide necessary documentation for applying citizenship as well. And the welcoming community Grey Bruce bridges that gap of creating that community and building that community by creating more awareness. They're working in partnership with Jblib and YMCA and a number of other organizations too. And they're hosting another webinar on bringing Ukrainian refugees to Grey Bruce, which is to educate and prepare residents on how to be more welcoming and inclusive. So just to summarize, Jblib bring together service providers, settlement services agencies, community groups, employer, and other key stakeholders across Grey Bruce to create a welcoming community which is inclusive. Thank you. Any questions are welcome.
Thank you. It's a great job that you folks are doing, and we really appreciate it and welcome newcomers to come into our area as well. I just have a quick question for you. I'm just wondering if you have some statistics for us to share in terms of numbers of immigrants that you've been able to bring into our communities.
To you, Madam Chair, are you talking about the Ukrainian one or the newcomers?
Just any of the newcomers that, we do see them around, but just in terms of the numbers that have come into our area that you are aware of, that you've had some influence, I guess, on and in reintegrating them into the community.
Sure. So Sunit is from YMCA, which is the direct service provider, and then they get all the detailed information because they have them, the newcomer, as their client. So she will be having the exact number of immigrants in the area.
Well, I don't need an exact one, just a kind of a guess one. That would be great.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think I can answer that question. So far, ever since in the last year, we have around 287 families that have moved into the Grey and Bruce communities. We don't have a whole lot that move to Bruce. So the maximum amount is in Owen Sound, Meaford, Kincardine, a bunch, and then Triverton. So in Bruce, I would say Triverton, a little bit in Port Algon. That's the flow because of Bruce Park. And other than that, most of the immigrants that have moved, even with the Afghan situation and the Ukraine situation, we see them mostly in Owen Sound, Meaford, like areas which are a little bigger as compared to, like you will not find any newcomers in, say, South, like Lions Head and municipalities like that.
Northern areas. Thank you for that. I'll open up Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, ladies. It's very interesting. I was particularly interested, you mentioned language challenges, and I would be the first to admit that the English language is very challenging. Where do you get O-U-G-H being an O or an U or enough, depending on what word it's used in? Things like that must be terribly confusing. Can you tell me how many of our new Canadians have not had any instruction in English prior to arriving here in Grey Bruce, or are the numbers high?
Yes, I would say almost 60% of the newcomers that move directly through sponsor groups, their English levels are lower CLB. So there are some who have low literacy because some might not even have gone to schools, right? But at the same time, people who come under the express entry, like express entry is skilled labor category. Those folks who immigrate here, like say if they want to be a physician here at the hospital or at Bruce Park, so that's the 40% stats, they would have a good English. But then I would say it's 60 and around 40%. And out of those 60%, around 20 would be low literacy, like people who've never gone to schools. So that's a challenge for us here because it takes a longer time for them to learn the language.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you so much, ladies, for all of the great work that you're doing. It is so appreciated, so timely, and so necessary. A question for you, though, recognizing, of course, the Ukrainian refugee situation and how dire it is. How do you promote the services and supports and opportunities here in Grey Bruce to those newcomers who are just arriving at our airports and encourage them to come and choose Grey Bruce as their new home?
So one thing that we have is something known as the pre-settlement services. So sometimes it's also pre-settlement service, and also we do have hubs, which are newcomer hubs in bigger cities, which are known as the landing sites, like Hamilton, Toronto, where the airports are there. So there they do have newcomer areas, and if we are in constant meetings with them once a month or after a couple of months. So they do promote that if you want to move to a rural area, cost of living is cheaper. So when they look at options, Owen Sound does have settlement services. So a part of the settlement services in bigger cities is to connect individuals, give them an option if they want to relocate to rural counties. So that's one. The second thing is we do have an excellent network of sponsors in the Grey and Bruce communities. So if the sponsors, they bring newcomers here through the church or through private sponsorship arrangements, they are aware of our services, and we do advertise our services over radio or social media platforms. So again, that is how folks touch base with us. Sometimes, especially for the Ukrainian folks, we have 3 families who already had some family member or some relative here in the Grey and Bruce areas. So they would connect with us. So word of mouth is again another way that we try and advertise our services. So these are a few things how we get. And also we have welcoming as well as Jblib. If the queries go to them, they advertise at a broader level rather than us being advertising stuff at the local level, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, and Deepikaa can add to that as well.
To you, Madam Chair. So apart from the direct support and this group of settlement services, Jblib is trying to, we have already extended our support to one of the organization called Ukrainian Association Support Canada, which is UADSC, which is one of the 3 organizations across Canada, helping to get the newcomers helping to get Ukrainian families stuck in the camps, refugee camps in Poland and Warsaw. So we have connected with them, and they have developed their own, how to host a family. So we have extended our support. That means they know that there is an area called Grey and Bruce, which is ready to host Ukrainian in the region, because we do have host families in Grey and Bruce who are ready to support Ukrainian families. We have different groups. Southport Church, David Baker is there, and he is supporting and have formed already a committee on that. From Towns of Blue Mountains, we have a special task force developing, working toward helping Ukrainians. So we have all the resources and the details how to spread the word that how Grey and Bruce can be home to them. And also we have, because we are IRCC funded, so they have asked us to develop videos to show what is available outside GTA. So we have developed that and will be sharing that soon too, that what is there outside GTA. And as far as settlement is concerned, I think we in Grey and Bruce, so to be welcoming, we need 2 dimensions, spatial and discourse. So spatial means where we have space and we can value newcomers, and then discourse means we have agencies supporting their unique needs of newcomers. So in Grey and Bruce, I think we have both, and we can be an excellent opportunity for them to come and settle here.
I just wanted to say that Welcoming Communities, in partnership with the Jblib and Settlement Services, is having a webinar tomorrow night at 7 o'clock about bringing Ukrainians to Grey and Bruce and what communities can do to host and support Ukrainians. So if there's interest in that, you can just go to info@welcominggraybruce.ca and I'll send you the link. It's a webinar that's being hosted by the Y. And we're also forming at the end of that webinar tomorrow a new group called Host and Newcomer Support Network. And that will be a network for host families and sponsoring families for Ukrainians or any other newcomers coming here who want to exchange information about how to be a host, what you need to do, resources, and exchange to build our community capacity, because we have a great track record welcoming Syrian refugees. It was really an outstanding time for our community. And now we have new refugees and newcomers in need, both from Afghanistan and the Ukraine and many other countries as well. So we want to build our capacity.
Thank you so much, ladies, for coming today and for your very, very valuable information, and best wishes to you as you continue these very valuable programs. Thanks again for coming.
So much, although we were assigned for 10 minutes, but we took more than that. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
All interesting information. Thank you. We also welcome delegations deputations rather on agenda items. And it is a pleasure this afternoon to welcome Joanne Clement, the president of the Meaford Rotary Club, to come and address council today.
Not right out to address you face to face, but I'm reading these history books of Meaford Rotary for each of you and for Rob Armstrong and for Clerk Matt Smith and for Rod Willis, Manager of Parks and Facilities. And I hope you have a chance to have a good look at them. And I'm sure that there will be lots of memories in there of years gone by for each of you. I'm standing here today to address the facility renaming request for the pavilion at Meaford Harbour. And I think that you have in front of you, each of you, a picture of the pavilion as we have changed it. And this is what we are wanting to speak to you about today. The executive summary provided to you states that the Meaford Rotary Club wishes to change the name of the pavilion to the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion in recognition of Mr. Russ Bumstead's fundraising efforts for the pavilion. What we are celebrating with this name change is Russ Bumstead's vision, insight, leadership, and skills in designing, orienting, and indeed using his unique skill sets right down to the last detail. He actually chose the individual BC lumber used in its construction, the same material that was used in the train station. The pavilion sits on the very footprint of the original train station at the harbor. The pavilion design was intended to resemble the architectural design of the original train station. The pavilion, if designed by anyone other than Russ Bumstead, would not honor Meaford's proud heritage in the same way. It was built by Meaford Rotarians under Russ Bumstead's leadership and applauded by the people of Meaford. Russ was a Rotarian's Rotarian, and Meaford Rotary is proud of his service to Rotary and to this community. We are proud of this pavilion. On June 4th, we dedicated the pavilion as the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion. We in no way thought that this sign would not meet approval. We were unaware of the approval criteria. Our communication was flawed, and we take responsibility for this. Our timing was off, and we recognized that we should have begun this negotiation earlier in the year. We should have received early in the process a copy of the facility naming request document to use as a guide. We were unaware of the existence of this document. Our intent was honorable. At this dedication, Rotary raised $1,085 for our food bank. We, in good faith, spent $805 on this new sign, which again, we are proud of. We contribute much to this community. Let me articulate our proud accomplishments of the last 2 years. Annually, we coordinate Baggy, an initiative to clean up thrown away garbage in urban Meaford. We adopted a portion of Highway 26 around McDonald's and Knights and complete a yearly garbage pickup in this area. We held our first Easter egg hunt this Easter at beautiful Joe Park with 200 plus kids. They enjoyed the hunt on a very, very cold and wet day. This at a cost of $900 to the Rotary Club. We volunteered to assist the military as Deputy Mayor Shirley alluded to earlier. And we will run the lunch barbecue for Canada Day this year. The fish fry is back on July 22nd by popular demand. We're planning to serve 600 to 700 people. The club gave a $50,000 donation during COVID to the Meaford Hospital Foundation for the sole purpose of mental health. The club gave a six-figure donation to the new Meaford Library to support youth and literacy. Georgian Bay Community School received $5,500 in bursaries for 8 students, and we provided $5,000 to assist students with reading issues through a computer application this year alone. We are proud that the COVID restrictions were lifted, allowing those in the community who wish to use the terrace room to use the $6,500 projector that we supplied. We said we would match funds for up to $5,000 if the community would give funds for the Haiti earthquake. We sent $10,200 to Shelter Box to be used in support of Haiti. As you know, there's a war in Ukraine, and the community, friends of Rotary and Rotarians, many of you in this room have given $10,000 to us, and with the club contribution, Meaford Rotary proudly sent in excess of $13,000 to the Red Cross Ukraine humanitarian crisis. Meaford Rotary is requesting that the new name remain as it is and shall read the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion, and that the current sign remain on the pavilion. We do feel that this sign supports the mission, vision, and values of the Municipality of Meaford, as well as the goals and the objectives set out in Council's strategic priorities, particularly with respect to strengthening our community. We are asking Council to carefully consider this request. Rotary is a proud organization that thrives on partnerships. Our desire to change the name of the pavilion to the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion is to serve as a testament to the strength of our community over its 85-year partnership with Meaford Rotary, and to highlight the contribution of an outstanding citizen. On behalf of Meaford Rotary, I thank you for your time today and look forward to a positive outcome for all. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Joanne. I think the comments that I prepared and was unable to attend your event on June 3rd reflected the high esteem that the Rotary Club of Meaford is honored in our community. We understand and appreciate all of the good work that you folks have done over the many years, particularly the recent ones that Jblib alluded to here today. This is an unfortunate situation that we are having to deal with. We appreciate you attending here today. And obviously, this will be something that the council will deal with in short order. But we want you to know that we value the work that you and your volunteers contribute to our community. We're proud of the work that you've done. We're proud that you're all such good, deserving members in your own right in our community. And we certainly celebrate the work that you have brought to us all. So thank you for that. Thank you for what you have done and for what you're going to do in the future, and the other things that are behind the scenes that we all know about as well. It's all very important work that you contribute to our community, and we value that. Councillor Kentner.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I'd just like to move that an amendment to the motion.
We'll put the motion on the when it comes down to discussion. If
Okay.
you'll hold that thought,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you
Right,
very
thank you.
much.
All right, we have no further questions from the public that I know about. And so we'll move on to council inquiries. Are there any council inquiries? None? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I do have a question for Jessica, so I'm going to strain a little bit to see if I can see you over there in the corner. Council has received in the past, just the past few days, several emails regarding the situation on Trowbridge Street. And we know Trowbridge is, I hope, somewhere in the queue for some improvements. But I just wondered, Jess, if you could share with us your thoughts on the current state of Trowbridge Street and where it sits in line for some improvements.
Through you, Madam Chair. Great question. So Trowbridge, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you exactly where it sits. But what I will say is that it's been at the forefront of our conversations for capital asset planning for the next couple of years, mostly as it pertains to underground water and sewer services need replacement, and therefore above ground things would be done at the same time. So we are looking at it being actually one of our combined infrastructure projects in the next couple of years. So we're hoping possibly to, I don't want to make any promises, but start design for next year and then therefore construction over the year after. So it's in the front of our minds as well. But all of that is hinging on the budget process this year.
Understood. Thank you, Jess.
Okay, Councillor Vickers.
Through your worship, just to further on a bit with what Shirley has said about the sidewalks, there has been a few emails. Has there been complaints issued or registered with the municipality about the safetiness of the sidewalks? Or like we get the emails, and I was just wondering if anybody has made any formal complaints or pointed out any inefficiencies.
Through you, Madam Chair, specific to Trowbridge, or I know there had been, so in general, when people have concerns or questions about sidewalks, they are received usually through our transportation staff, and then the staff will investigate. And if there is something that needs to be done, we usually have an annual contract to remediate panels in sidewalks. So at that time, we'll have a list of those types of locations and kind of make sure that some of them get checked off from an annual basis. We do often say spray paint if there's trip hazards to make them more visible in the meantime. But generally the process is for us to first find out about them and then us to make sure that we can remediate them in a timely fashion. I have recently received some emails regarding that particular location, but I think that was just this morning. I know that we will definitely have a look to make sure that everything's safe until the time that we can work sidewalks into a reconstruction.
If I may,
Yes,
so the proper procedure would be though to notify staff about these issues. I think that's the most important thing that we can, as council can do right now, is try to inform people of the proper procedures. So if staff doesn't do it, as much as emails to councillors maybe helps, I would urge people to phone the municipal office and get a hold of the right people to then to make sure that things get looked after as quickly as possible.
Any further inquiries?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to add to Councillor Vickers' point, I happen to be writing some protocols about this right at this second, so it's well timed. I did really encourage residents to use the report of concern feature on our website, which is www.meaford.ca/report of concern, because then there's a form to fill in, which gives a name and address, the location of the issue. You can put in the category that it is, whether it be water or garbage or roads or a marriage license or anything you like. Really, we've got 100 categories on there, all of which are searchable. You can attach files if you want to attach photos. You've got space to write a note. We're continually upgrading this as it is. So I'd really encourage people to go to that website and submit their things there, because then not only is it going to the right people, because each category is assigned to the right staff member, But we as a senior team can also then track that because it's creating what we call a case. Whereas sometimes when a phone call or a voicemail or an email comes in, I had one this morning, somebody asking about follow-up. And of course, I didn't know it existed because it had gone somewhere else. Whereas if people use this system, go in through our website, then it's very easy for us to follow up and for our customer service team to be able to check what the status of a case is and so on. So just always encourage people to go and do that.
Go ahead.
If I could, Matt, could you say the address again, a little slower?
I can. It's really easy one. It's www.meaford.ca/report a concern, all one word.
No
If you go to the
space.
homepage at meaford.ca, it's in the top right-hand corner. There's a link that says report a concern, and that takes you straight to that form.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Good information. Thank you, Matt. Okay, I'm not seeing any further inquiries from council. So with that, we will move on to point 8 on our agenda, motions and bylaws for decision. One that we typically would address would be a consent agenda, but we have nothing on the consent agenda at this time. So we'll go into items for consideration, and we have one there. COM 2022-17 is a drainage superintendent appointment and the corresponding bylaw 2022-37. The recommendation reads, be it resolved, bylaw 2022-37 is a bylaw to adopt a drainage superintendent and that be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Bell, Councillor Greenfield. And any comments on that? Questions to staff? Being none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Jesse, for your getting the credentials for that and certifications, and congratulations. A move, please, to move us into committee of the whole. Councillor Kentner, Councillor Vickers. All in favor? And that is carried. First item on the list is with regard to community service. COM 2022-18 is the facility naming request for the Harbour Pavilion. Could I have a mover and a seconder to please to put that on the table? Councillor Vickers and Councillor Kentner. Recommendation reads that Committee of the Whole receive report COM 2022-18, a facility naming request, Harbour Pavilion, for information purposes. And I will open it up for discussion. Councillor Vickers.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. And we had that great presentation by the Rotary Club here just before, and certainly there's no argument on all the fine work that the Rotary Club does and has done over the last years. It's unfortunate the president made acknowledge that procedures maybe weren't quite followed, and which is unfortunate, but hopefully we all have learned a little bit from this procedure and try and find an acceptable outcome for Rotary and the municipality both. So I know Councillor Kentner is a motion that he says he's got prepared, and I'd be certainly looking forward to hearing what that is.
Okay. Councillor Kentner, you had.
I do. I'd like to move that the motion be amended to read that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford endorse the wish of the Meaford Rotary Club to rename the Rotary Harbour Pavilion to honor the memory of Russ Bumstead, who designed, built, and fundraised for what has become the popular hub of the harbor. Russ Bumstead's vision and his mission to realize this project meet and exceed the municipality's naming criteria.
Mr. Clerk, have you got that written down?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that wouldn't really be sort of the normal text we'd use for a motion, and doesn't actually do what it needs to do, because endorsing the request is slightly different from approving it. So council is actually going to rename it, because council is the decision-making body. I think much of what Councillor Kent has said is perhaps for conversation rather than necessarily, we wouldn't normally have it in a motion. So in the report, I suggested that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford rename the Rotary Harbour Pavilion to be the Ross Bumstead Rotary Harbour Pavilion, subject to consent from his family, which I think does the same thing and is perhaps more in the style of our motions, but we will do whatever council wishes us to do.
Well, thank you for that. That motion is there. We do have a motion that is put on the floor, and I guess we have to ask for a seconder for that motion. And then we'll go through the motion. Councillor Greenfield will second that motion. All right, then we will open it up for discussion in terms of your motion.
Yes, thank you. And through you, your worship, I have no problem with amending the motion to make it clear that this is, a council's decision. I would like my wording with respect to the role that Mr. Bumstead played in the development of the pavilion to stand in the motion in order to clarify where exactly council stands on this. Thank you.
Thank you, your worship. I think it's important what Councillor Kantner is suggesting to make it quite clear that Ross, and I'm going to call him Ross, I knew Ross for a long time, the immense role that he had, and I think if we leave that out of the amendment, I think it should be included, because he needs to be acknowledged and honored for his efforts. There's certainly no doubt in my mind, had not Ross been the driving force in that construction of that structure, it likely wouldn't have been done. So I'd like to have that acknowledgement. Now, I don't think Councillor Kantner had the word harbor in his amendment. Am I right on that? And I'm okay either way, really, because I have become accustomed to hearing that building referred to as the Rotary Pavilion or the Harbour Pavilion, and I can be happy with either, but I think it's certainly important that we get Russell's name there, and just a little bit of background about the efforts he put in to the project. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So maybe I will not be in order. So bring down the gavel. I thought that what we were looking at was the actual name on the building to be discussed. So Russ Bumstead, and the notes here are to include the word harbor. And what's on the building currently is Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion. So they've already got a sign on the building, but the word harbor is not there. And so the report was to include the word harbor. Now, just like what Councillor Greenfield said, I've always known it as the Rotary Pavilion. And in our package, it was talked about there could be some degree of confusion, particularly from fire services. So on Councillor Kentner's motion, I'm just not so clear whether the intent is the existing name, which is currently on the building, or whether your intent is to include the word harbor.
If I may, if you add the word harbor and maybe throw a logo on too, you won't be able to see Russ's name, because if you look at the picture, you'll see that it's not very large, and you have to get halfway through the parking lot to really be able to read that, at least with my eyes. So I think I'd encourage you to approve the motion. I've kind of lost the point. If the motion does not accomplish what it needs to, then we need that wording changed, and I'm just need to clarify that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I wonder if while Rob is talking, Councillor Kent might be able to send me the words that he read, and then I can see if I can fit
Sure.
in the actual probably 2 words that we just need to add.
Thank you. That Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford endorse the wish of, approve, would you like, the wish of the Meaford Rotary Club to rename the Rotary Harbour Pavilion to honor the memory of Russ Bumstead, who designed, built, and fundraised for what has become the popular hub of the harbor. Russ Bumstead's vision and his mission to realize this project meet and exceed the municipality's naming criteria.
I think what we'll do then, Madam Mayor, if it's okay with everybody, is we'll have that. We'll have the Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford : number 1, what Councillor Kentner has said. Number 2, formally rename the Rotary Harbour Pavilion to be the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion.
And just one more point, if I may, and that is, I believe, we have the family's consent. I don't think it's necessary to go back to the family at all in connection with what we're trying to tidy up today.
So the municipality hasn't received anything to say that, but that's
as a representative of the municipality, I heard it, distinctly in the ceremony that was held last Saturday. That is, the members of the family were present to, participate in the ceremony. So, thank you.
Is there anything further on this? Councillor Bell?
Well, before we vote, I'm unclear, Madam Mayor.
Me too.
I mean, the report is to include the word harbor, and Councillor Kentner is not including the word harbor, and just leave the wording on the building as it has been with the celebration put on the building. So Councillor Kentner should just, I can't make an amendment at this point really to what Councillor Kentner is thinking and saying.
You can make a friendly amendment.
But it's just that it just should simply be that it's going to be called, as it is currently on the building, the Russ Bumstead Rotary Pavilion. That would be the amendment in my mind to what the report is for what we were to vote on, which we were to include harbor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the motion that's on the floor right now is to receive this for information purposes. The piece that's in the report was an alternative that we offered, and that's been replaced by what Councillor Kentner has suggested. So
Okay.
that motion that actually specifies Harbour Pavilion isn't on the floor for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor.
Yeah, through your worship. I wish my councillor friend here would just keep it more succinct. Like, more words isn't always better, and it makes the motion terribly confusing in my mind. The other question I have, I always thought it was the Harbour Pavilion. That's the way I've known it. So if somebody asked me, where are they going, I would tell them to go down to the Harbour Pavilion. I would like to ask staff how much of a concern by leaving the harbor part out is this, whether it be in an emergency or people knowing exactly where it is. To me, the harbor part, I know we're maybe splitting hairs and almost butting heads with the Rotary Club, but if you leave harbor in there, it does certainly make it very clear where to look for the pavilion, and that's why I was hoping we might be able to find some common ground, and I'd be interested to know what staff has to say about how important for safety and just naming and being able to find the place, how important they feel harbor is to leave in it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't think that the safety aspect is of particular concern. I think if a member of the public was in some difficulty at the harbour, they'd likely refer to it with 911 as Meaford Harbour, not necessarily, and say by the pavilion or something. So I think we're probably okay on that front. The bit that worries me slightly, and it is a small thing that is probably not a big deal at all, is that Councillor Bell talking about how he's always known it as the Rotary Pavilion. That's because Councillor Bell's lived here his whole life pretty much, whereas a tourist coming into the community or somebody visiting for a wedding or something wouldn't necessarily know where that was. But I think that's a small thing, and I think from our point of view, if the sign that's gone up is what the Rotary Club wants and council wants to move forward with this, then rather than having to take that down, replace the sign again, and as Councillor Kentner says, the photo shows that it's quite a tight squeeze already. I don't think it's a particularly big deal.
So I have a question for you, Mr. Clerk. I'm just wondering if this will come back for ratification because it is an amendment.
So this is committee of the whole, so it will come back in 2 weeks, whatever the amendment says, yes.
So my question to you then is whether we can use the wording with regard to Rotary's wishes, etc., to rename, because from my perspective, I think we have to be very careful about the motions that are coming forward from council, from the committee of the whole to council. It is the committee of the whole is recommending that the council of the municipality rename a municipal building, and the wishes could be in a preamble to the motion coming forward. And that would that then clarify?
I
you're
think,
shaking
Madam
your
Mayor,
head.
the
complicates
combination
things.
of Councillor Kentner's text and my section 2 to formally rename the Rotary Harbour Pavilion to be the Ross Plumstead Rotary Pavilion means we're just fine. It's very clear what the intent of the motion is, which is the main thing.
Okay. All right. So any further discussion then on the motion as presented? To the amendment of the motion, and then I will call the question. All in favor of the amendment to the
As amended.
as amended? And that is carried.
And then we'll just need a vote on the main motion now that you've changed it.
As amended. Okay. So now I'll go back to the mover and the seconder and call the question as the recommendation for that the committee of the whole we're not going to receive the report. We're going to approve the motion as the recommendation as amended. That clear to everyone? Yeah, all right, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to financial services, FIN 2022. Shirley, you can come back now, thank you. 09 to -2021, non-budgeted year-end reserve and reserve fund transfers. And mover and the seconder, please, to put this on the table. Councillor Greenfield and Councillor Vickers. Recommendation, the committee of the whole recommend council of Municipality of Meaford approve the transfer to and from reserves and reserve funds as itemized in report FIN 2022-09. Comments, questions from council? A lot of information here. Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I guess my question to the treasurer is this $300,000 raised in part, or was this $300 operational surplus in the water department? Was that raised in part by a significant increase in the user rate for water? Was that part of the, we raised water rates again and substantially, and is that $300,000 being raised in part through that added charge?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kentner. No, I think it's just some of the things weren't spent. So no, it wasn't the increase.
But does that mean that we didn't need to increase the user fee to the extent we did?
I'm going to say no.
The CAO wants to help you out here. So.
Through your worship to Councillor Kentner, we budget based on, we don't budget for a surplus. So these were actually projects that we intended that we didn't get to, and that's why they're being placed into a surplus to go in another year. so that we don't have to even increase it even more. So no, we don't budget for surplus. The surplus, the additional fee that we requested from the user was to offset real costs that we had projected that we just never got to. I think that's the best way to explain it.
Well, does it mean then that we may be able to not increase water rates to the extent we did next year?
Through the worship, I think those projects we still, or that works we still need to get to and do. We just never got to it last year. So through the budget this year, we'll be looking at those projects plus capital projects. And if anything, it might reduce the amount of debt that we have to undertake with regard to future projects if through the budgeting. I wouldn't say it's going to actually reduce, because we still have all of those requirements identified in our long-term plan for replacement to deal with. I think the key thing to assist us in reducing it will be getting more users on the system and having more people paid to the system from the long-term infrastructure replacement programs that we have.
Could I ask a supplementary? Or
One more.
just, well, the same is true of 168,000 operational surplus in the wastewater rates. And I just, would you affirm that it is the same story?
Yes, correct. Through your worship, it is the same story.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I wanted to ask a question of CAO Armstrong. The CIP funding, the county $60,000 that is placed in reserves. Is there something we can do to better promote the opportunity for CIP funding to our municipalities so that there's more of an uptick on the opportunity to take advantage of these funds?
Yes, through your worship, it is our full intent to promote it. And in particular, promote, once we get our new CIP program in place, to promote those incentives that assist in provision of more forms of housing that can benefit some of our housing challenges. So our intent is definitely to promote it. You'll be actually getting some reports coming forward with some existing, a number of projects that have taken advantage of this year. They just haven't got to the council table, but we are going to, on all levels of housing, try to promote that better into the future.
Thank you.
Councilor Bell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And thank you for this updated report for all of the reserve fundings. And as your report said, is there 52 reserves? I think that's what I read as a number, well, 52 reserves. On page 36, just as an example, in our counselor's package, we had comments earlier today about sidewalk and sidewalk condition and so on. So at the top, there's a sidewalk reserve fund and it has $1,400 in it. And then Deputy Mayor, you were talking about, payment in lieu, and we've assigned, there's $100,000 in the future well-being plan. I remember not too many council ago, I asked the clerk a question about the reserve fundings, and the clerk needs to, over the course of time, make sure that election money is available to run the next upcoming election. So there's always those monies which are put in to make sure we can run an election. And I also know that there are times when sitting council assigns excess to a specific item. But overall, how is it truly determined? Is it case history that you, Valerie, would go through and look at case history as to what the municipality needs to have in place? And that's why I use the example of the clerk just running an election as a case history of what those costs would be. So how is it that we truly are determined over 52 reserves, how much money truly gets put in there?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Bell. We kind of do a summary of revenue and expenses for various programs. So for example, winter control, if we don't use it, then we put it to offset possible winter control next year. If it's a bad winter, we would be able to take money out to cover additional costs for winter control. It's the same as for water and sewer. We we transfer any excess to those, the same as building, it always has to go, because it's a regulated, it's regulated that any building income has to go to a reserve. So if we have a surplus in some of our wages, we offset that to a wage, like at the HR account. The other thing that we're doing is we have done a review and we want to reduce the number of reserves. So it's 52 now, but there's a few that we want to combine. And that'll be a report that comes probably next month to combine so that you can use them for other items. It'll be similar to what they're safe for right now, but it will be consolidated some.
Further to that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Rob.
Sorry, I was just going to expand that a lot of the reserve fund, council actually has a policy that establishes how much we should have in those reserve funds. We shouldn't have more, we shouldn't have less. So the other thing that we look at when we're considering reserve fund balances is that policy that's been established by council. So that's the other thing that we consider in addition to what Valerie said. I think the big thing going forward is the report that's been brought by Matt, all these reserve funds, we really want to take a look at them. We believe some are not necessary anymore. So we're going to be recommending probably through the budget process, us combining stuff and doing it, and maybe even reducing some stuff in that regard.
Thank you for that and the time on that, because we as council see from time to time where there's a report that's come forward and staff are recommending that we do something, and then we change it and we put it into some results. So it is truly part of your ongoing work, is it not, Valerie? Just you're always involved in the money and where it's at and what we have.
We're always trying to review everything. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you to Valerie or whoever might be able to help. On page 6 of 6 of the report, the third last item on the last page, it's a sum of $98,000. Involves the Inter-Township Fire Department. Says the funding of balance owing to ITFD for unpaid bills. And I'm just a little curious as to, I'm assuming there are unpaid bills, and if there are, can you advise me as what those bills might be, and I guess how they originated? Does this go back perhaps to when our municipality was discussing dissolution of our partnership and things went a little off the track there? Or I'm just curious as to that.
Matt, you want to tackle that one?
I do. It's a really, really good question, Councillor Greenfield, and one that I was asking a lot recently as well. What this $98,000 is actually an amount that we learned about through the audit that was presented to the Inter-Township Fire Board a month or so ago, I think it was, and Madam Mayor can confirm that. And it's actually money that's been apparently outstanding for a long time. Some of this was from 2014 and 2015 capital invoices. I don't know why we didn't know about this. It was the first time I'd heard about it, and I believe it was the first time the Mayor and Councillor Bartley had as well. It appears to have been outstanding and growing slightly over a number of years. It's a little odd it didn't come up when we were talking about all the potential financial arrangements for the future of the department, but it didn't. So about 20,000 was operating related for some monthly invoices that obviously got missed at various points in 2017 and 2019 and so on. So we've paid that from the 2021 operating accounts. So that meant that the ITFD budget was a little over budget for operating last year. But this $98,000 was all for capital things, for the purchases of trucks and bunker gear or repairs to the hall and so on. And so that's coming out of the ITFD reserve, because all the way through that period from 2015 to today, we've been putting money into reserve for ITFD's capital needs. So all of these costs were covered by our transactions into reserves in previous years, but for some reason the bills just didn't get paid. And now they have been, so we're 100% up to date on our payments to ITFD.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Smith. Some of us go back to the time that I was on the ITFD, and I don't remember this being discussed. So
Absolutely.
Hopefully we can get it straightened out.
I'd like to express thanks actually to the team at Georgian Bluffs and to our finance team. And obviously both municipalities have got new treasurers, and Georgian Bluffs have got a relatively new clerk as well. And so all of us sort of didn't really know much about it, but we've working together, and as I say, the finance teams in both places have been wonderful. We've managed to figure it out and hopefully get all the money in the right place.
I just want to echo that thanks to our finance teams who have pulled this together, because we did go through several audits during that period of time, and it wasn't obvious through any of those audits. So it was a surprise for us all. So thank you, Val, and to you and your team. Guess that answers that question. Councillor Kentner.
So if I may, another question or two about these reserves. The library, 81,492 operational surplus for future library board allocation, and 170,450 for transfer unspent library loan budget for ongoing and future capital use. And my question is just simply, you've got the answer before I have the question. My question was simply, could none of these funds be used to pay down the debt on the new library?
Over to you, Rob.
Actually, first I'll explain the rationale for the transfer to reserves. We are just finalizing, we still have some outstanding payments to the contractor on the new library. They have to be put in reserves at the end of the year so that we can pay them out this year. So it's to finalize the big amount. The other one is relation to salary gapping that had occurred at the library last year. There was a surplus in particular library. We'll be working and be probably discussing it at our meeting on Wednesday with the library board with regard to the surplus in that regard. With regard to the debt has already been secured through Infrastructure Ontario. It's set, so it'll be more just and the 80,000 how the board might want to take on a project with those funds based on salary gapping, and we'll have a discussion at the board in relation to that.
I'm not seeing any. Yes, do you have another?
What, just one more. I just 139,414 building department surplus, and I didn't think we could have a surplus, or did I understand that we could have a surplus one year, but it would have to balance out the next? So I guess my question is, how do we balance it out next year?
Through your worship, I can probably speak to that. You could have surplus, but you have to look at year over year that you're constantly not getting a surplus. There was quite a few years where we actually operated with an impact on taxpayers based on fees. It's to offset those years where may dip. However, that being said, the building department is looking at implementing the new cloud permit system, looking at implementing certain elements going forward that may be looking at using some of those reserves this year in relation to proceeding with some advancements in technology to assist.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, I will call the question. All in favor of approving this report? Thank you very much. This carried. Next one is FIN 2022-10. Again, reserve and reserve fund balances update. Recommendation is that to receive this report for information purposes. And mover and a seconder, please, to put this on the table. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bell. Thank you. And open it up for questions, comments. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a question for either CAO Armstrong or for Valerie. Rob, you mentioned council has a policy to establish what the amount should be that are placed into reserve. So I just wondered if you could kind of remind us where we are then in relation to that policy with what we have in reserves now. Are we in a good position or are we still not where we need to be?
Through worship, obviously it varies depending on the account. Some actually we might be getting up at the high end, and we had that discussion again through our look at the reserves in totality. I think our intent is to look at what happens that some might be good, some may not be good. So we'll be bringing that back to council at a future date.
Okay. And anything further? Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the working capital, it seems to have gone up the most kind of on a percentage. Is that because of the PILT settlement? Is that where a lot of that money's coming from?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Because basically with the opening balance of 1.6 and a transfer from revenue of over 800,000, it's gone up the most. And I assume that's where it was coming from. So it's kind of a one time.
Yeah, that's the one in the previous report that was showing as the PILT for wellbeing, PILT for sidewalks, PILT for Bayfield Street, solar panels and Nelson Street have all gone into that working capital for now.
Until they're used.
And will they get used this year in the 2022 year?
Some have been budgeted, some haven't.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Madam Mayor, in your announcement earlier today, when you said how long that you personally have served this municipality, and when we see our reserve fundings here and the chart that we have, I know that you personally began when this municipality virtually didn't have any reserves. It was a very dark period of time, and you were on council when that happened, and you helped dig our municipality out. And now this afternoon, we can look at a chart where it's showing pretty close to $22 million. So really, as a comment on this particular thing, Madam Mayor, I think upon your leaving, you're leaving this municipality better than when you came. And that's a tremendous thing. I want you to know that and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Appreciate that. Exciting times. Okay.
I would just say ditto to that, Councillor Bell.
All right. So we need to pass this. All in favor of this, for receiving this for information, and that is carried. FIN 2022-11, the 2021 year-end surplus. Recommendation is that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council direct the Treasurer to transfer 42,000 of the 2021 surplus to the Planning Studies Reserves. And number two, transfer the balance of the operating surplus to the General Infrastructure Reserve Fund. We'll move in a seconder, please, to put that on the table. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Greenfield. Comments, questions? Deputy Mayor.
Your worship, thank you. And I just wanted to inquire of staff if I would be correct in more or less assuming that putting the bulk of these surplus funds into the General Infrastructure Reserve Fund would allow us to move forward with various projects as we see tenders coming in now significantly over budget to what we had anticipated last fall in budget discussions. Would that be a correct assumption?
Go ahead. Through your worship, as we've noted in the report, we feel that's the best. So by putting it in there as a project comes in with increased costs for steel or fuel costs, then we be able to proceed and use these funds for that. So yes, that was our initial intent of putting it under this in this reserve.
Councillor Vickers.
Through your worship, and I would agree with the statement that the deputy mayor made. It's great to have the reserves, and I can appreciate going through a time when there wasn't very many reserves, but I think it gets to a point we have to figure out where we want these reserves to be. We know it doesn't improve. It's nice to have and it's needed to a certain level. But after a while, we do need to, look after the needs of the municipality, and by looking after the needs of the municipality isn't leaving the money in the bank. It's to get it out there and spent. But there is a very happy medium in there somewhere too. So I can understand where we've been and where we are now, and hoping to find that nice spot in between to use the people's money wisely.
Well said. Anything further?
I just add to that. Thank you, Paul. I would add to that. I wish Councillor Bartley were here because he is the sharpest knife in the drawer when it comes to this topic. And I really, my concern is that once they go into reserves, it isn't money that you can just, grab in a pinch. It doesn't work that way, I don't think. And I'd just like to look a little clearer understanding of, whether we will be able to, well, it's going into infrastructure, and therefore, it won't be there for any other use. And that's my biggest complaint or concern with reserve funds, is that whenever council, needs some spare change, it's unfortunately in the wrong department. And so anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Councillor Vickers.
If I could ask one more question to Valerie, and I'm sorry about putting you on the spot here. So how much in the 2022 budget, how much money have we taken from reserves in the budget process? Like, because we have I think basically a $30 million budget. 15 million of it comes from taxation, and the rest of it comes from loans, from taking withdrawals out of the reserve fund. Is there any way, do you have the number quickly at your fingers by any chance, Val, or do you want me to keep talking a little bit longer? Because I'm really starting to stretch it out as much as I can. But I think it should be noted that to the people of the municipality, how much money in the 22 budget does actually come from the reserve funds. That's about all I got, Val.
Okay.
Rob,
Just
in the
Val's
meantime.
looking for, I know exactly what she's looking for. So when we do the 2022 budget, there's that summary sheet that says where all the funding comes from. So Val's just looking for that sheet to pull that figure out.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Vickers. In our capital budget last year for this year, 2022, budgeted from reserves is 2.5.
And then in the operating, Councillor Bell mentioned the election earlier. So there's 45,000 coming out of reserves for the election from the last 3 years worth of contributions. And I think there's about 70,000 coming from the HR reserve for a previous issue. Those are the only things I can think of.
There will be a few that come from operating as well.
Yep. So we're basically almost taking as much out of the reserve funds as we put in from 21 to 22. So it's kind of a net zero sort of a.
So we're using the reserves.
Correct.
That's what you want to know.
Yes. Yeah. And I want the people to know that too, that we just aren't, although it looks like we're saving money more and more all the time, that we are trying to use it as best as possible.
For sure. And some of the reserves too are legislated that for specific concerns. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you again, Your Worship. Through you, either to Mr. Voigt or Mr. Armstrong, going back to the 42,000 to go into the Planning Studies Reserve Fund. It says it could be used for future studies or unforeseen costs, such as an appeal or the official plan. Now, could this be an appeal to the official plan? Okay, so that's primarily why we're setting some funding aside. Okay, I just wanted to get that clarified. Thank you.
Councillor Kentner.
I just wonder if our CAO could explain how can they appeal legislation? Like how can anybody appeal our legislation?
So through the Ontario Planning Act, Council will be asked to approve the official plan, or sorry, adopt the official plan. It goes to the county for approval. And then anybody who participated in the processes goes on, has the right to appeal a decision of the official plan.
A decision of the official plan or the plan itself?
Well, the plan,
Okay.
or someone's not going to appeal the entire official plan. They likely to appeal a section of the official plan, like someone might appeal the designation of land or might appeal a policy because they don't like that.
That's all news to me. That's interesting.
Okay. Anything further? All right, I will call the question. All in favor of the recommendation is presented, and that is carried. Moving on to FIN 2022-12 is the property tax increase forgiveness program. The recommendation here is that the Committee of the Whole recommend that the Council promote the County of Grey tax forgiveness program and include the repeal of bylaw 2019-72 in the June confirming bylaw. A mover and a seconder, please to put that on the table for discussion. Councillor Kentner and Councillor Bell, thank you. We'll open that up for discussion. Seeing nothing. Councillor Bell.
Well, thanks, Madam Mayor. So as we read the report, it really is not a really big, really huge deal in the municipality. This to me looks like this needs to be passed to adopt, to have, that it's in place should it be needed, because those that qualify or are able to qualify seem to be a very, very small portion of our ratepayers. But it is nice to know that there's something there, then that the municipality is willing to work with people who do qualify. Pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Thanks.
And there was considerable discussion of this at our community safety and well-being plan of recent date with regard to that, because it is something that was a task on our plan activities. And so that recommendation has come forward as well. Anything further from this? I'll call the question. All in favor of this recommendation is presented, and that is carried. And that moves us into updates from members appointed to county council and committees and local boards. And you're on deck, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I'm going to speak to our last county council meeting, which took place on June the 9th with Warden Hicks back in the chair, returning from his period of campaigning as a Liberal Party candidate for Bruce Gray. Dr. Era addressed council with comments from a recent Board of Health meeting where he stated that the current incidence of COVID is less than 5 per day. Hospital admissions are minimal. We are hearing a lot in the news recently about the presence of monkeypox. The disease is not expected to be a threat to Grey Bruce counties. Monkeypox has existed in the African jurisdictions for 50 plus years. Surveillance is active though, and case and contact management procedures are in place should the need arise. Linda Alexander, YMCA Employment Program Director, shared the success of 2 SAO programs. SAO is Skills Advance Ontario programs, which are underway in partnership with the Long-Term Care Committee, Georgian College, the county, and the Y. Funding was received from the Ministry of Labor, Training, and Skills Development to support workforce challenges in local long-term care facilities. An ESSC, which is an Essential Skills and Support Care Worker, a program for them is available, as well as a PSW training course. And these were offered at the county-owned Sydenham campus. 109 individuals graduated the programs, the majority of which are still employed in our long-term care homes. The program was so successful that a further grant was requested and has been received to continue this training. A substantial report was presented regarding the county's updated asset management plan. The county breaks its assets into 8 categories: roads, bridges and culverts, housing, buildings, stormwater, machinery and equipment, vehicles, and land improvements. The portfolio includes 869 kilometers of roads and accompanying stormwater networks, 77 kilometers of CP rail trail, 8,500 acres of forest, 996 housing units, 49 other buildings and facilities, as well as equipment and vehicles used across the county to deliver services. 88% of the county's assets are considered to be in fair or better condition. The county's assets are valued at a replacement cost of $1.63 billion. The infrastructure deficit based on available funding is almost $16 million. The AMP proposes an annual 1.57% tax levy increase over a 15-year period to achieve full funding for the recommended asset management program. This increase will be considered during the 23 budget process. Director Pat Hoy presented the Transportation Organizational Review, which was undertaken by Strategy Corp. The last external review was conducted in 2011. Significant changes have happened in the industry and department since then. Grey County is experiencing a 3% annual growth in traffic counts, but yet a 40% increase up in the number of complaints. Like many businesses, Grey County is facing staffing, attraction, and retention challenges. The number of employees in this department has not changed in 10 years. The report recommends adding 8 staff with a phased-in approach. 3 new positions will be requested during the 23 budget process. Director Hoy was clear that adding new personnel won't solve all the problems the department is facing. 21 recommendations were also presented in the report to create efficiencies in current operations. And just a point that I found very interesting, in the public comment section of the 155-unit Flat Oak Glen Elg Southgate Meadows Phase 2 subdivision report, only one resident submitted a question which involved the separation of the project with the CP rail trail system. Residents were supportive of the development, even though it takes in agricultural land. So as I say, I found that very interesting because our residents are very engaged in development processes here in Meaford, which is absolutely great. But in some of our other municipalities, that is not the case. Developments are put forward and adopted and approved and come to be without a significant amount of resident involvement. So I just find it really reaffirming that our Meaford residents take an interest in what we're doing and that they do come forward and share their comments with us. And Your Worship, over to you in case there was anything you wanted to add.
No, that's pretty thorough report. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And we'll move on to the Heritage Advisory Committee. Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. The Heritage Advisory Committee met last Wednesday. We heard a new proposal for Collingwood Street, where a number of derelict houses east of the old Capitol Theatre have been demolished. The property changed hands in 2020. This new proposal is not nearly as dense as previous plans, with one building beside the theatre facing Collingwood Street, containing 12 3-bedroom condos that would have traditional townhouse look, but the ground floor would be 600 square foot stores with traditional recessed doors. Another 20 condos in 2 buildings would be east of the first structure, and these 2 buildings would face each other with a central pedestrian mall that would connect Collingwood Street with McCarroll Park. These condos would feature a 200-foot ground floor store and a 200 square foot loft suitable for a business office. Young entrepreneurs would then be in a position to have a home and business with one mortgage, and there would be certainly more walkable retail in our downtown core. So this was one of the most interesting and promising presentations we've had, and certainly look forward to how that develops. And in the meantime, we had an update on the official plan review from Director of Development Services, Rob Voigt, and an update from Jesse Ospitz from NPG Planning Solutions concerning the concurrent update of the Downtown Meaford Heritage Conservation District Plan and Guidelines.
Thank you for that, Councillor.
If I can ask a question, Your Worship. So you talked about the density level being less in this project here. What is the density level, Ross?
I don't think I can tell you, but as you know, it's a fairly large site with a total, I think it would be, am I correct? It would be 32 condos. That would compare with 160 some odd condos on Trowbridge Street. You know what I mean? Probably a similar size parcel of land. So I think it's And the other thing that is so appealing, I think, to members of the Heritage Committee is, and what we're hearing from Meaford ratepayers is that they would like some of these new developments in the downtown core to include retail opportunities. So that would be,
So if I may ask another question,
go ahead,
so,
go
so
ahead.
what density level does the Heritage Committee prefer?
We don't have a figure in mind. I wouldn't say that isn't really our prime, concern. But I would say that we find some of the proposals that we have received to be denser than probably makes good sense for especially on the sites involved. Does that help you?
Not really, but anyway, that's good.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just to add to the presentation from the Sarley Canada folks, this was all above grade parking, nothing underground. And between the two condo buildings, there was a muse proposed, which is I'm anticipating a green area, and it just seemed, in my humble opinion, that this was more of a made in Meaford proposal, or a proposal that could be suitable, that I think the potential for it fitting in is considerably more than some of our other proposals. But I mean, I'm not trying to discount them either, but this one just seemed to, I don't know, it just seemed like it, hey, this could maybe fit. And the commercial aspect, I think was interesting too. So yeah, I think the Heritage Committee was maybe a little more satisfied with this one than some of the proposals that have come forward recently.
It's an interesting proposal for sure. So anything further? We'll move on. All right, I guess I'm up next with the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and we are Advisory Committee rather. We met on May the 25th, and this was really the first functioning one, the meeting for this committee. And the first item of discussion was the official plan review, again, the second workshop. And the committee members were quite interested to see how the well-being plan fit into the official plan and how that will go, and the impact of various external influences on future municipal direction. Our staff person, Allison, who's sitting in the back, and we welcome her to our committee, presented an update on the tax forgiveness program, which we have just agreed to abolish our version of it in favor of the county program that made more sense to all of the people in that situation. The other item that came up for discussion was an annual well-being survey, and this is a task that has been identified in the 30 tasks that came out of the well-being plan, and with a focus on youth mental health, access to doctors, and if any positive aspects or changes have been noticed since have arisen out of the pandemic. Another item that we saw with Allison's touch to it was a visual tracking method for the action plans, the action items in the plan. And we heard an OPP report highlighting that calls for service have been increasing over this past year, and talking about the traffic related charges. And that was the end of our, we did have some reports that came to us for information purposes. One being the Community Foundation of Grey Bruce, a vital focus on housing, which we have heard before. And that was it for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan group of folks. The next one we have is open up for any other boards or committees that the council would like to share at this stage. Being none, Motion, please, to move out of committee of the whole. Councillor Bell, Councillor Vickers, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. On to councillor motions. Are there any notices of motions to come forward at this point? Seeing none, then we have two for decision. The first one, 10.2, is Deputy Mayor Keaveney on Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. I'm assuming that you will move that, will you, Deputy Mayor?
Most definitely.
And is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Greenfield, thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Deputy Mayor, to speak to this motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't read the motion, but it does speak to the recognition of the need for affordable housing in our municipality. This comes about following the request from Mark Shebanidi, who presented at our last council meeting and shared very concerning statistics and in great detail about the need across our Southern Georgian Bay region to support any venue we can to attract more affordable housing to our communities. So the suggestion I'm bringing forward here is that we create an affordable housing group of some description. And I think perhaps the best way to do that is moving forward into the next term of council. And as council considers the advisory committees that they would like to establish, and with making a grand assumption that perhaps there would be another economic development advisory committee, that affordable housing fall under their auspices, and that they determine at that point in time whether the committee takes that on as their priority, or whether they choose to establish a working group, or however that could function through, as I say, the auspices of economic development. So that's how I see this coming together, because I think the time is past where we need to start having more significant discussion on the issue of where people are going to live. I mean, we know that our nursing home is obviously being built, and they're going to need many new staff. And at the moment, I have no idea where a PSW coming into this community could find an apartment that he or she could afford. We know that our grocery store, for example, is operating with far less staff than it normally would have if it could. So if we're going to attract these people to our community, we have to participate in finding them a place to live, in my opinion. So that is the purpose behind the motion, and I ask for council support in moving this forward with the request for a terms of reference that be created so that it's in place for the next term of council, and they can then decide with how to proceed. And again, my hope is that this would come through the Economic Development Committee in some fashion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing the subject matter of affordable housing forward. I mean, within the entire country of Canada, it's federal government's concerned, and the provincial governments, I'm sure, are, and counties are, and local representatives such as ourselves. We're all concerned about the subject matter called affordable housing. I like the line, Deputy Mayor, that you put in about the council believes that the options presented to the new council should include an affordable housing advisory committee. I fully, I like that line. I believe that that's going to be a really serious subject matter for the new incoming council. But at the same time, at this time, getting our staff to actually develop all of the terms of reference. I've got a question, because we've got two subject matters which are both dealing with affordable housing. I've heard in times past, Deputy Mayor, about a current sitting council binding an incoming council. And I just need a comment either from yourself, Madam Mayor, or senior staff, What does that mean for a current sitting council to try and bind an incoming council?
Through you, Madam Mayor, a complicated question. Every decision that council ever makes binds future councils until that future council decides to do something different. There is nothing, I shouldn't say that. There are a few things that a council can do that truly binds a future council. A zoning decision, for instance, is one of those. The next council can't come in and change their mind on a zoning decision. But in general, a contract award would be another. If we've already entered into a contract with a company for $1.5 million, the next council can't suddenly turn around and say, no, I don't like that. We're just not going to pay you and you're not going to do the work. But in general, on all of these kinds of things, there's no such thing as binding because the new council gets to decide. And I think the way that the deputy mayor's got this motion is exactly that. It's saying we want to see something and then the new council can decide.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I agree with Councillor Bell. It is in Councillor Keaveney about how important it is to have this affordable housing in our municipality. I guess where I get concerned is where are you hoping, how are you hoping to move the needle by forming this committee or by having the terms of reference submitted so the next council could actually form the committee? So how will this committee move any projects ahead? And to kind of go a little bit further, I kind of thought this is a bit of a county sort of thing. If I'm mistaken, then please tell me. But I thought it was more of a county responsibility as opposed to the municipality of Meaford's responsibility. So,
May I speak, Your Worship?
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for your questions, Councillor Vickers, and I appreciate the opportunity to expand on the motion. I think first of all, the challenge is understanding the responsibilities of each level of government. Yes, we know the county is involved in housing. Predominantly, they support supportive housing, geared to income type housing. They are involved in that level of providing housing for folks who are in need. The term affordable, I think, is a challenging one. People have different conceptions of what it means. To me, it means predominantly worker-based housing. I'm talking about rental housing in particular, where, people who are working in our service industry, in our restaurants, in our nursing homes, whether it's starting out or seniors on fixed incomes, for example, where folks, who have an income can afford to rent. When Mark presented to us, the figure that she gave us was $995 a month. That has been established right now as what someone, working in those types of jobs could afford. I mean, I look at it from the perspective of Meaford is attracting many new residents, which is wonderful, but many of them are well-heeled, retired. They're coming and purchasing expensive homes. And I think those folks are going to have expectations for the types of services that our community will offer. They want to come to great restaurants and they want to, have aesthetic services and they want people to clean their homes and all those kinds of things. And if we're going to, as a community, be able to provide those services to them, those people have to have places to live. I mean, at the moment, we have probably a less than 1% vacancy rate. There are just no apartments available. And the ones that are, are priced out of reach for someone who is working, in one of our new shops. We're going to have the Pom Pom ice cream shop opening up shortly, for example. If I was working there and earning probably not much more than minimum wage, what could I afford to rent? So that's the type of housing that I think it's important for us as municipalities to participate in, because if we don't, who is? And the other piece of that I did speak to in my county updates at our last meeting was the delegation that County Council has requested for the emo conference with Steve Clark, because as we spoke about at our last meeting, we as a municipality and the county itself does not have the tools currently to move affordable housing forward. If we look at what happened recently in the town of the Blue Mountains, they took a stand on this that went to the provincial level because, the provincial policy statement says that 20% of housing, should be affordable, but we don't have the tools to enforce that. So the town of Blue Mountains took that to the next level. They lost, but they certainly gained a lot of public attention. And they actually are now working with a developer who is doing a project. And I believe the number is 6, your worship can correct me, units that the developer is going to sell to the town of the Blue Mountains at cost. And so these are going to be condo units that TBM will get for the cost to the builder. And they in turn then will, I don't know if they will sell those at cost or if they will rent them out as worker-based housing units, but they have made strides in trying to find ways of addressing this issue. So does that answer your question, Councillor Vickers?
I guess partly, I still wonder, like, is your vision, or is the vision of this committee will be that the municipality then becomes a landlord of these houses and somehow determines what becomes criteria to be able to rent or to own any of these places? I guess I'm still struggling to see where you're trying to move it to and how we're going to move it.
Worship, if I may. Councillor Vickers, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape or form that the Municipality of Meaford do the same as TBM is doing with this particular developer. I'm just citing that as an example of what they're doing over there. I think where we're starting here is being in a position of really understanding the problem. And there's some points I want to speak to under Councillor Greenfield's motion that will help, I think, explain my position as well. But I think what this task force can look at is also helping members of our community become more aware of where we stand in need for worker-based housing. I think there's an opportunity to help people understand that what we're talking about is not a subsidized community such as Victoria Village, for example, that's not what we're talking about. And to help people overcome their fears about what would happen if that was proposed in their backyard, so to speak, just to help people recognize the need for it and to work with them and hopefully bring the community on board. I see it as an opportunity for that sort of discussion within the community in working with our residents and as I say, bringing them into the discussion and on board and doing this together as a community, just because it is so important that we have places for people to live. We all have kids, and when those kids are graduating university and starting out, they need a place they can afford to live in, and everybody deserves that. So I hope that provides some further insight into where I'm coming from here, Councillor Vickers.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your explanations, Deputy Mayor. I too have some curiosity, I guess, about moving ahead with a task force at this stage of our term of council. It does require staff time, and there are outstanding directives that the council has put forward that staff is entertaining to the end of the year. So that's one concern, but I think this is a very, very important topic. It is nationally a very important, worldwide, a very important topic. And what I think there are probably things that we can do while we wait for directives from the province, because this is where really I think the directives, the tools to not only incentivize but also enforce the 20% of new development being affordable or attainable. It is market driven. We know that developers coming in, they are there for a purpose, and so there has to be tools that any municipality has at their disposal to work with that. But I think perhaps one of the things that we can do now is to really get moving on new builds, to get new builds underway. I've speaking with economic development individuals interested in that, and that is a comment that I hear frequently, to get the new developments building, so that will free up older homes that may be at a lesser value in terms of smaller homes, for example. So there are things that I think municipalities can do legitimately in carrying on the business of the municipality. We want the development here, and we want to make sure that that we move those projects along as well as best we can. It's I think the other challenge that we have to face here, because it is not an isolated solution. There is no simple answer here. I think one of the biggest challenges we have too to consider is income levels. It's a problem that cannot be solved in one fell swoop. So my suggestion, I guess, or my thought might be that you know, this will be an opportunity for a new council coming in to be looking at the formation of their committees and their how they want to approach the issues that will be confronting them. And I'm just wondering if your involvement, particularly Deputy Mayor, on the Grey County Task Force for Affordable Housing represents us well in that forum. And that is going forward under the auspices of Grey County, that representing a larger being with all of the member municipalities to have an impact on provincial moving ahead with developing some tools and some areas where the larger venues, larger Grey counties and so on can make an inroad there. I'm just wondering if that's where we should look at to guidance and to continue with supporting the Grey County's efforts in moving ahead with their task force on affordable housing, if that might be something that we could do as a municipality that would not impinge too greatly on staff involvement and would be effective at this stage as they proceed with a delegation to the AMO conference and speaking with Minister Clark. It's just a thought going forward, and happy to hear anybody else's thoughts. I'm just going to go to Councillor Vickers first, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So what would be the procedure to show support to the county for their delegation to the provincial body? I know we've already gone past the notice of motions. Does it have to become through a notice of motion? Because I think, you know, Deputy Mayor Keaveney, you know, has good points, but what the mayor is saying also has some good value to it. That, you know, again, we want to move the needle, sort of thing. We want to get something accomplished, and is this by going through the county and making showing our support to the delegation? Would that be, you know, added value?
Look to our clerk or to our CAO for guidance on whether we can now at this point write a letter of support.
I think I'll speak to just the premise. I think it would be good for us to support the county in their delegation. I'll turn it back to Matt on procedure, on whether it can come now. Or this is not going to August, so we do have a bit of time to get that support done before that point in time. But I'll turn it over to Matt on timing.
I think that if council wants to have formal support, then yes, we'd have to pass a motion. I think we could accept a notice of motion now instead of 10 minutes ago, if you wanted to do that at the next meeting. I think as municipal staff, we could write that letter already because we know that council and committees are concerned about it. But if you wanted something formal, then yeah, we'd have to do a motion at the next meeting.
Okay. And Councillor Kentner, I'll get to you in a minute, please, Deputy Mayor.
Sure.
Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to speak in favor of the motion briefly. County housing, they are responsible for affordable housing. Affordable housing is an extremely complex area and one that engrosses the resources of the county to the nth degree. I think they have terrible problems trying to manage what they have, and I doubt that they have time to seriously look at how we can develop some affordable housing in Meaford very quickly. I think that this is a little bit like the climate change motion, which we all supported, because we know that at the end of the day, if we really care, we will work at it and we will find some solutions. And I think that it's just difficult as will be. I think we need to try and address it on a local basis. I think we've already had a certain amount of success, and I credit everybody who's been involved in that, getting the loon call project off the ground and enhanced as it is, and still you can buy a home for $299,000 in Meaford. I think that's a huge advantage for us. And I think that council, aided perhaps by an advisory committee, and maybe one already in existence, when I think of economic development, could take some good initiatives to try and do what we can, because at the end of the day, too, the county will be, has nine masters, and we serve our own house. So I think I think we should approve this motion and see what the next council can do. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Your worship, thank you. And just a few more points, with your indulgence. If we think of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee and recognizing that Meaford stepped forward and said, we are going to do this for ourselves because it's important to us. And the county moved forward and did theirs. It was a requirement of the province, and we could have gone along with that. And your worship will want to speak to this, but we recognize now that the responsibility for that plan is going to come back to municipalities. And so we are so far ahead, so far ahead in the reality that we undertook that plan ourselves. I certainly would support a support letter. I think it's important that we do that. And I think it's not just the fact that should the next term of council agree to a task force or through the Dev committee or whoever that came to be, there's certainly opportunity to work with the many regional organizations that are playing a huge role now in trying to bring worker-based affordable housing to this area. We know that the Southern Georgian Bay Institute, for one, is doing a tremendous amount of work, and our own CAO has spoken twice, our mayor has spoken, and I have spoken at on panels at those meetings, and all of us are quite aware of the huge amount of awareness there is at that level. So I think there's opportunity for this group here locally to work with all of those levels to try to help bring some housing to our own municipality. I mean, we know through the Fort County Labor Market Planning Board statistics that this area has the lowest unemployment rate in Ontario. So we know the need is here. And again, I just feel it's really important that we represent ourselves, as Councillor Kentner said, and that we take this bull by the horns, so to speak, and that we undertake in whatever way is appropriate for us here locally to make some movement in the attraction of some affordable worker-based housing for us.
Councillor Vickers.
Through your worship. So if I may ask, Deputy Mayor Keaveney, would, instead of setting up another completely standalone committee, would you be happy, or would you consider it just going underneath the economic committee?
Your worship, if I may, yes, and just to provide clear clarification of the request, what I'm asking for in this motion is just to have terms of reference created. That's it, not to form a task force now, not anything beyond just the creation of those terms of reference. And it will be entirely the decision of the new council as to whether or not to move forward with those and add it to the responsibilities of the ECDEV committee at that time, or to create a new task force, or to do whatever the next council would choose to do. But right now, only to create the terms of reference in readiness for that discussion. That's all I'm asking for.
Can I ask the clerk or the CAO perhaps to give us an idea of the work involved in this?
I'll, through your worship, with regard to the terms of reference, I think it would be an advantage to us if it was very clear on whether it's an amended terms of reference for the ECDEV committee to include housing, or whether it's a separate terms of reference for an attainable housing committee, I think, or a task force. I think it might be advantageous to us if it was amending an existing one to include housing in the considerations.
Mhm. And your worship, if I may, I would be very happy with that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think this might be one of those moments where the CIO and I disagree, which is fine, because I think I'd say the opposite. It'll be work whatever we do, but my concern with putting affordable housing under an economic development committee is that the people you would want involved in a housing committee are likely pretty different from the people you'd want involved in an economic development committee, because they're incredibly different skill sets and knowledge bases. If a housing committee is going to be successful, then you need to have housing specialists. But that's me, not as the clerk. That's me as somebody who knows this much about housing.
Where do we go from here?
And your worship, and I appreciate your comments, Mr. Smith, and I do think that is something that the next council needs to determine how much emphasis they want to put on the attraction of affordable worker-based housing to this community. So I think for today, if we agreed that housing would potentially fall under the auspices of economic development, and assuming, because we don't even know today if the next council is going to agree that there's a need for an EDAC. We don't know that. So I think if we agreed today that with the assumption that there would be, and that housing be added to the existing terms of reference, then it shouldn't be a huge amount of workload for staff, I would hope.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's the same either way, because we've got to figure out what a committee can do about this sort of stuff. If I was suggesting anything, I would suggest that we leave this as it is, because the bits around the edges are pretty easy. They'll meet this many times, they'll do this, they'll do that. That's the same on all of our committees. It's the specific content about what a committee's there for that will take some time. That's the same for both. And it'll be easier after the fact to merge two together than it will be to extract things out of. So I would say if you want to focus on affordable housing, just tell us to do a terms of reference and we can shove them together afterwards if needs be, rather than sort of say now that you want to do it under one, because then that will get harder to take apart later if the new council wants to take it apart.
So, okay. Just one final comment, your worship, and I appreciate all the time I'm permitted at the mic in relation to this topic. We do recall that when Mark Shebanidi was here, she did make an offer because she led the task force for Simcoe County. And I know that she would share or would happy to participate in creating a terms of reference if it was felt that her expertise could be valuable to us.
Okay. Good discussion all the way around. Is there a notice of motion going to come forward for a letter of support to the Grey County Task Force? I'm asking that question, if there is one.
Yes.
We
I would-
mentioned
I
that.
would-
You'd
yeah.
like to move that. All right.
Yeah, I
So
was going to wait till after the motion was.
to put a notice of motion.
Yeah.
Okay. So that will come back then at the next council meeting. All right. So we have a good discussion on this item. And if we're ready, no further questions or comments, discussion, I will call a question. All in favor of this
Excuse
motion
me, Your
going
worship.
forward? I'm
Can
sorry.
we just be clear on what the motion is?
Yes, we need to be clear.
Yeah, we talked a lot about.
The
it, a lot of
motion
different
that
things.
is on the floor right now, there has not been an amendment to it.
Okay.
So the motion that is on the floor is that direct staff to draft a terms of reference for an affordable housing advisory committee, and that the terms of reference be presented to the new council in December 2022 as part of the review of all existing and potential advisory committees. That's what the motion that is on the table at this point. Okay, so I will call the question. All in favor of this motion going forward? Okay, and that is carried. Moving on now to the second motion under Councillor Greenfield's banner, dedicated tax increase for affordable housing. And I'm assuming, Councillor Greenfield, that you will move that. And is there a second for that motion? Councillor Bell. Right.
No,
Care to
thank
speak to
you.
that?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thanks to my fellow council members for some very interesting prior discussion and comments and questions. And I'm not going to get into statistics about affordable housing. We've all read them, heard them. And I'm not going to come out and declare that affordable housing is our municipal responsibility. I've gone through the Municipal Act and I can't find that affordable housing in there. However, our council, our municipality has supported other important local causes in the past. Support for the Meaford Hospital Foundation. Councillor Bell was asking about long-term financial commitments. I think that's usually a 10-year deal. And the same with Grey Bruce through the through County Council. We've made a commitment to support our regional hospital organization. Community improvement plan. That's support of local businesses. We don't have to do that. That's taxpayer dollars. I think it's a good plan. I think it has worked out well, but that's something like, and I hate to name it, but even the Scarecrow Festival, we don't have to support the Scarecrow Festival, but it's good for our community. It's an important part of our community. So is having a place to live, an affordable place to live. I think right now there are opportunities to partner with other organizations. This I don't think we can jump into this by ourselves. I think we need to test the waters, see who's out there, what other organizations might be interested in getting involved. I look at a couple of buildings that are basically, well, they're not in the center of our urban area. Well, one is practically, but the former high school, a huge building. There is so much potential there for conversion into apartments. We, about a year ago, toured the office building at Scott Clay Products. You could put a lot of apartment buildings in that two-story office building. TC Energies apparently has some community benefit money for us. TC's looks as if their project up at the Army base is going to go ahead. What are they going to need to build that? They're going to need workers. They're going to need employees. Where are they going to stay? Perhaps there's potential for an arrangement with TC Energy for a building that eventually could be converted into affordable housing. We've talked so often about our community well-being program. Well, what could be more representative of your community well-being than having a place for people to live? A young person who wants to live here, work here, raise a family here, and they can't because there's no place for them to live. No affordable place for them to live. I think that's sad. So what I'm asking for is just a discussion at budget time. Could there be a spot in our budget? And heaven knows there's hundreds of other places for our taxpayer funding, but is there a chance we could perhaps work some funding in? To me, unless our municipality declares that we're willing to make a financial commitment in support of affordable housing, it's the same old, same old. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. We really need it, but we're not prepared to do anything. I hope that explains why I wanted to bring this forward. I know our deputy mayor is quite concerned about the situation, and I just think again, if you're going to get serious about something, you just about always have to put up some money. Thanks, Your Worship. I digress, and certainly open for
comment.
more comments and questions on a really important issue.
Deputy Mayor,
Your worship, you may wish to go to someone else first. I've spoken a lot, but
your hand is the only one up at the moment.
okay, so here we go. Thank you, Your Worship, and my appreciation to you, Councillor Greenfield, for bringing this very bold and aggressive motion forward. This is exactly what Grey County did. The Affordable Housing Committee recommended that the county institute a 1% budget recommendation going forward to support housing, and here we are looking to encourage the next council to do the same, because this isn't anything we can do today, but we can certainly move this forward to be part of the 2023 budgetary discussion at that time. So I look at it from the perspective of 1%, so roughly $160,000, and what will we do with that? Because you can't build a rental unit for that. You can't even buy land for that. So how could we best invest 1%? Should that be agreeable with the next council? And so I think of a couple of things. First of all, we need to understand here in this municipality, what we need. We know we need affordable worker-based housing, but how much of it do we need? Where should it go? What size should the units be? How much rent can people afford here in Meaford? We need to really understand that particular piece of data. And I know that you can purchase from the census, from the 2021 census, you can purchase statistics from them that will help us figure that out. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it costs some money and some staff time to undertake that piece of work. So I think from my perspective, that's something that could come out of this 1%. The other thing that we could do would be to look at creating a land trust. And I know Director Voigt is an expert in this area, and a land trust could be a process where the municipality and other partners could come together, which would permit businesses or the municipality itself or any philanthropists who wanted to participate to jointly invest their funds, which then allows the purchase of homes to rent or land or however that might come together. That would probably require a staff person. So that wage could come out of the 1% and could start moving that forward so that funds could come together to actually undertake some projects and, to work with developers and to encourage that to happen. I mean, just as an added comment, I read just before our meeting began today, an article in the Globe and Mail, the recent Manulife survey, which states that 1 in 4 existing homeowners will be at risk of having to sell their homes because of the increasing interest rates. So where does that leave even another segment of residents who may need this type of rental housing? So I just stress how incredibly important it is, and that there are very good ways of investing this 1% that could really make a difference here. With your worship's permission, if I may, I'd like to ask Director Voigt to speak a little bit more to a land trust and how that could be set up and how it could benefit us.
Through your worship, my experience, first of all, in community land trust is that I was in a previous employment when I was out west in Washington State. I was the council appointment to a board that was starting a land trust out there. To note that there are in North America, there are a couple hundred land trusts, and using a similar model, there's probably the same amount or close to that in the UK.
It's a process whereby there is a nonprofit struck that is that owns the lands. We often around here might see that in Ontario often with environmental lands. We're quite familiar with that. I think people have seen that more often. But in terms of housing, the land trust owns the lands, and then through various mechanisms, they fund or partner to have homes built that then are either bought and then they lease the land, or they are rented out to the occupants. When those homes go up for sale, there's a model there that in terms of how much that homeowner can receive in terms of the increased value, and part of it goes back to keep running the trust so they can get more land, more homes, and keep building that way. By taking land out of the equation, it means inherently the homes are always that percentage less expensive. So they continue to be perpetually below the freehold level. Land is the most significant influence on housing costs. I know our CAO has looked into this in the past as well. The great thing about a land trust is that they work essentially in any context in terms of rural all the way to the most urban context. In fact, there's examples in the city of Toronto. So in terms of this kind of proposal, what could, in theory, the municipality support? It's obviously not at this scale going to be land and homes, but perhaps the support and staff resource to the founding of a nonprofit, and essentially until they get their feet underneath them to keep going, moving forward. The benefit of a community land trust in this way is that the municipality would have done their part, and then it truly is in the hands of the community to keep moving this forward. And that's where all the best solutions lie. There's partnerships that can work with other existing resources, either at the county level or Habitat for Humanity, which is what we did at West, and a whole variety of other things. So it leverages the capacity of the municipality to help get something going. And then maybe in the future with disposition of lands, things of that nature, but then allows the community and all of its resources through that nonprofit to do what they feel that they want to do. It lets the community put their money where their heart is and move things forward.
Thank you for that, Rob. Are there any further comments, questions, Councillor Vickers?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Harley, as much as I agree with your intent, I guess I'm struggling to kind of tie the hands of the next council. The next budget is going to be an extremely tough one. We know where inflation's taking everything, and we're going to have to do less with the same amount of money as it is. So to further put a 1% tax levy onto the system without knowing exactly where that money's going to go, I know it'll just hit a reserve fund for the time being until it's decided. I don't think I can support doing that to the next council. If the council wants to do it in the budget deliberation in 2023, then so be it. And but as of right now, I don't think I can say yes to this proposal when there isn't maybe more of an end to it, to what would happen to the money instead of it just going into reserve funds. So those are my comments.
Thank you for that. Anything further? Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, if I may, to Councillor Vickers, where I see this motion sitting with this current council is just in a place where we can move it forward to that discussion for the 2023 budget. And I know we can't bind the next council. We don't know if any of us will be here for the next council, but I think what we can do is just raise the awareness with this particular motion that this potential exists, and to just move it forward and encourage the next council to consider it when the time comes. So I think that's all we can do in supporting this today.
This is a notice motion for decision, so it will not come back. Anything further from council? Are we ready to call a question on this one? I'm not seeing anything further to discuss, so I will call the question. All in favor of this recommendation going forward as presented? 3, 4, and against. And that is passed. Okay, we're moving on to point 11 on our agenda, the adoption of the minutes of the council meeting, May 30th, 2022. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bell, Councillor Greenfield. Any comments, questions on these minutes? Then I will ask the question, all in favor of accepting those minutes as presented, and that is carried. Is there anything on the communications file for to be pulled for further discussion? Seeing none, we will just file those as presented to us. And that brings us to adjournment. We have completed the business of the municipality as found on this agenda. I want to thank everyone for your contributions. It was good discussion this afternoon, and for staff for your participation. And I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.